is now effectively the provisional government in Yemen. A lot of their weapons have mainly been Russian weapons. Remember that the Yemeni military has joined with what's sometimes called the Houthis. Really, there, as the point was made before, it's a much broader group now. You can't say it's just one particular community in Yemen there. The military, the great bulk of the military joined with the revolutionary forces there, the Revolutionary Council. So although the government of Iran may well be very sympathetic to what's going on there, there isn't a relationship such as there is between Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon, for example. There isn't that sort of relationship. There wasn't that sort of relationship. I don't really know. We can't tell from a distance what's going on, but there's very minimal evidence that Iran was directly involved in supporting the Houthis. Of course, that's been beaten up as an excuse for the intervention on the part of Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf monarchies, but very little evidence has come out so far. With the escalation of things, who knows? But as I said, I haven't seen very much evidence at all of direct Iranian involvement. The situation is quite different in Syria, of course. That's a different story altogether.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And Chris, what do you think?
About Iran's involvement?
About Iran being involved in Yemen war.
Well, I don't think Iran intervened in the internal affairs of Yemen, but I would also like to mention that Saudi Arabia knows very well that Iran didn't intervene in the internal affairs. But the main issue is that it's not that Saudi Arabia is afraid that Iran will install this puppet government. It doesn't want an independent Yemeni government at all, because even being remotely friendly to Iran or neutral, that's somehow a deterrent to Saudi Arabia's ambitions.
That's right.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Mícheál, please.
Well, there have been allegations. I must emphasize that word, allegations, of not only support from Tehran, but support from the Party of God in Lebanon, and there's been very little evidence to back up these allegations in the media. Also, someone, a whistleblower from American intelligence, said any minimal support that there may have been has been exaggerated to provide as evidence of Iranian involvement. Also, it is the evidence, he said, of any ties were being exaggerated to drum up support for the Saudi invasion. So even if, and it's an if, there is minimal support from either of the two parties mentioned, it is very little when you compare Saudi involvement in terms of supporting Hadi, the Western puppet, basically. And on what Tim and Chris said, Ansar Allah only make up only about 200,000 fighters in the 450,000 strong Yemeni coalition. So it shows that the military, as Tim and Chris correctly identified, are supportive of the Yemeni regime, which is based in Sana'a in the west. And basically, I think if they get rid of the puppet in Aden, then it's just a matter of pushing east towards Oman. And as I say, there are allegations, nothing has been proven, and basically the intelligence whistleblower said it was being exaggerated for public perception and as a military rationale, to summarize.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And is the human rights being violated by either sides of the war? Do you think? Tim, would you please answer?
Well, that's a difficult question because war is never good for human rights for anyone, basically. Inevitably, not just civilians, but the fighters themselves, their human rights are violated. There have been UN reports on the aggression against Yemen and to some extent the internal conflict. Those reports aren't always very reliable these days. We've seen, particularly with reports on Syria, that they've been very skewed. But in the case of Yemen, there have been reports of systematic violations of human rights and large-scale civilian casualties because of the nature of the aggression. I mentioned before that the Saudi aggression against Yemen is not really in terms of conventional warfare. It's been in terms of air attacks and in terms of the use of proxy Islamist armies, the Al-Qaeda groups, and to a lesser extent, really, their conventional forces have been battered very seriously by the Yemeni forces. But the nature of Al-Qaeda attacks is notoriously indiscriminate. The air attacks, because the Saudis don't have good intelligence on the ground there, have been far more indiscriminate than, say, is the case in Syria, where in the case of the Russian and the Syrian air forces, they have very strong coordination on the ground and the air forces are backing up ground forces. The Saudis don't have regular ground forces or decent intelligence there, and so the indiscriminate nature of their airstrikes have been far worse, and notoriously worse, to the point that it's admitted by the United Nations. So, and I think that's been behind also the recent resolution of the European Union to ban arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Now, that's, of course, the government of Britain has not come to that position yet. I think there's some internal conflict within Europe, but the European Parliament at least has, I think to a large extent, reacted to those abuses in Yemen by passing that resolution, which does put moral pressure on the British government, for example, because there's a number of British parliamentarians and the British public in general are very concerned about the use of British arms by the Saudis in Yemen. So it is having some impact in Europe, the reports of the violations of human rights in Yemen.
Thank you. And Chris, could you please answer this question?
Well, as Tim pointed out, the very nature of this war is illegal and a gross violation of the UN Charter and human rights as a whole. So anything that happens afterwards is a direct consequence of such. And plenty of things already happened, and this is an understatement because it is really depressing and impossible to express in words how much the Yemeni people are suffering.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Mícheál?
Well, I think that, again, we must outline who is responsible for these human rights abuses. Saudi Arabia, so King Salman, he is undoubtedly responsible for many of the 3,000 plus whatever civilians have been murdered, and basically it is murder. He's flying over, dropping bombs on civilian neighborhoods. Now, I'm just thinking, if another head of state were to do that in another country, I'm sure the West would be hearing about it. But again, this is Saudi Arabia doing it, and basically Barack Obama and David Cameron's hands are bloodied with this affair because they have both financed and armed the Saudi regime, and they have command responsibility. And basically, this is not going to get better. This is going to get worse, because the regime that is based in Sana'a has, the legitimate regime, should I emphasize, has 450,000 fighters against a total, if you combine the Wahhabists with the Saudi coalition, 188,500. This is not going to get better. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And I think the Saudi coalition will bring the American